Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to The Next Framework in Engineering. We're not just here to watch the news, but to understand how the machines that are changing the world work. And speaking of machines that change the world, today we're going to analyze a technical report that has fallen into my hands and is quite simply impressive. Forget everything you think you know about a data center. What we're going to break down today isn't a building full of servers, it's a pharaonic engineering work, a vertically integrated artificial intelligence factory. We're talking about Meta's Hyperion project, located in Richland Parish, Louisiana. Look at the magnitude of what we're dealing with. This isn't a simple server upgrade. It's a capital investment of more than $27 billion, projected to reach a final power capacity of 5 gigawatts. To give you an idea of the scale, and this is fundamental to understanding the engineering challenge, the Hoover Dam, one of the most iconic hydroelectric works in history, generates about 2 gigawatts. Meta is building a computing infrastructure that will consume 2.5 times the energy of the Hoover Dam, all concentrated on a single campus. This marks the end of the era of the data center as a commodity, as a simple refrigerated warehouse, and the beginning of the era of the AI mega machine. The reason for this radical change is physics and the need for scale. The industry has entered a phase where competitive advantage is no longer just having the best algorithm, but having the industrial capacity to execute it. Massive language models and deep recommendation systems, the ones that decide what you see on Instagram or Facebook, require clusters of hundreds of thousands of GPUs functioning as a single logical brain. Historically, Meta used air-cooled designs, perfect for web servers that if they failed, nothing serious happened. Their previous attempt, the Prometheus supercluster, taught them a hard lesson. You can't adapt old infrastructure for new generation AI. Hyperion is what we call a greenfield design, built from scratch, specifically designed to overcome the limitations of Moore's law and current thermal limits. Let's delve into the pure engineering of this monster, and I want to start with what I consider the most colossal challenge: energy. Managing 5 gigawatts at a single geographic point is a nightmare of electrical engineering. The public grid isn't prepared for this. Wait times for an interconnection of this caliber can exceed 5 to 7 years. Meta can't wait that long. Therefore, they've opted for a fascinating strategy called behind the meter. First, Meta has become, for all practical purposes, an electric company. They're building on-site 3 combined-cycle natural gas generation plants. This is what we call baseload generation. Why gas and not just renewables? Because IT equipment of this sensitivity needs perfect frequency and voltage stability. The intermittency of sun or wind would fry training processes if there's no firm backup. Second, they integrate this with 1.5 gigawatts of solar photovoltaic energy. But the engineering magic here isn't putting up panels, it's the microgrid management system. They've designed a system capable of balancing in real time the load between gas, which is firm, and solar, which is variable, without the training cluster noticing. It's a perfect symbiosis between the old school of fossil fuels and the new school of renewables to guarantee continuous operability. And here comes a design decision that I find brilliant and risky in equal parts. They've redefined redundancy. In a classic data center, you have massive UPSs, giant batteries, and diesel generators in case the power goes out. That costs billions. Meta has said, no. They've eliminated much of that backup infrastructure. How do they do it? With checkpointing. Imagine you're playing a very difficult video game. Instead of leaving the console on forever for fear of losing progress, the system automatically saves the game every few seconds. If the power goes out, the console turns off. But when it comes back, you resume the game exactly where you left off. Meta does this on an industrial scale. If power fails, the model state is saved in distributed non-volatile memory and the cluster pauses. By doing this, they save a fortune on redundant electrical infrastructure and redirect that capital to what matters: more computing capacity, more GPUs. Now, let's talk about the heart of the beast: silicon. Meta doesn't marry anyone. It uses a heterogeneous hardware architecture.
Thank you very much. I'll continue. On one hand, for heavy training, they massively deploy NVIDIA's Blackwell Ultra architecture. And here I want you to pay attention to a key manufacturing detail: TSMC's CoWoS-L packaging. We're reaching a physical limit in chip manufacturing called reticle limit. Lithography machines can only print chips of a maximum size. Blackwell is so large it doesn't fit in a single standard print. The solution is to use an organic interposer with local silicon bridges to connect multiple chiplets. This allows creating a superchip that integrates two massive GPU compute dies and up to 288 gigabytes of HBM3E memory. The interconnection between these dies reaches 10 terabytes per second. In practical terms, the software sees a single gigantic chip, even though physically there's several pieces joined with atomic precision. But, and this is crucial, it's not all training. Much of Meta's work is inference, serving you the content you like. For that, using an NVIDIA GPU is like killing flies with a cannon. It's expensive and inefficient. Third, for these recommendation workloads, Meta uses its own silicon, the MTIA V2. It's an SRAM-centric design. Instead of using the very expensive HBM memory of GPUs, they integrate 256 megabytes of SRAM memory directly on the chip and use LPDDR5 memory, which is much cheaper and common. This chip is specialized in sparse matrix operations, achieving triple the performance of its predecessor with much lower energy consumption. It's a masterpiece of cost and efficiency optimization. However, having the world's fastest chips is useless if you can't connect hundreds of thousands of them together. And this is where we encounter a formidable enemy, the copper wall. When you try to connect 100,000 GPUs, traditional copper cables have a serious problem. At high speeds, the electrical signal degrades very quickly. You need very thick and short cables, which is physically unfeasible in a giant campus. This is where my favorite specialty comes in: photonics. Meta is leading the industrial adoption of co-packaged optics, or CPO. Allow me an analogy to visualize this. Imagine that the switch chip is a large central train station in the city center. With traditional technology, passengers, data, have to get off the train, walk through long hallways, leave the station, take a taxi, copper cable, to the airport in the outskirts, and there board a plane, optical fiber, to travel far. That taxi ride consumes time and energy. With co-packaged optics, Meta has brought the airport inside the train station. The optical engines are mounted on the same substrate as the switch chip. The electrical distance is reduced to millimeters. Data passes from electricity to light almost instantaneously. This is implemented in the Bailey switches, based on Broadcom Tomahawk 5. This integration reduces the interconnection's energy consumption by more than 70% compared to traditional optics. It's a quantum leap in network efficiency, enabling topologies that minimize latency, something critical so that synchronization operations in training don't slow down the entire supercomputer. But all this power has a thermodynamic cost. The Catalina racks that house the GB200 superchips reach heat densities of 140 kilowatts per rack. Trying to cool this with air would be like trying to put out a forest fire by blowing. Air no longer works. Meta has completely transitioned to direct liquid cooling. The heat generated by GPUs and CPUs is captured directly at the source through copper cold plates with microchannels. A dielectric fluid or treated water circulates through them, efficiently carrying away the heat. But what about the rest of the components, like memories or voltage regulators, which also heat up? For that, they use rear heat exchangers on the rack doors. They're like giant radiators that neutralize any residual heat before it exits to the corridor. Now, this heat has to go somewhere. The atmospheric heat rejection system depends on massive evaporation towers, and here we reach a dizzying figure. It's estimated that the campus will consume up to 23 million gallons of water daily. They extract this resource from the Mississippi River alluvial aquifer. Although they use very efficient closed-loop systems, the scale of consumption raises serious questions about long-term hydrological sustainability.
Thank you very much. I'll continue. We're moving water atoms to move intelligence bits. All this titanic effort places Hyperion in a fascinating market context. We're seeing a trilateral race for infrastructure supremacy. On one hand, we have xAI with its Colossus project in Memphis. Elon Musk managed to deploy 100,000 GPUs in 122 days. His advantage is raw speed, the ability to improvise and take extreme risks. On the other hand, we have Microsoft and OpenAI with their Stargate project. It's an even more ambitious vision of $100 billion. But it's that, a vision for 2028 or 2030, which depends on energy technologies that aren't ready yet, like perhaps modular nuclear energy. And in the center is Meta with Hyperion. Hyperion represents the pragmatic path. It's not a future dream like Stargate, nor an improvised speed race like Colossus. Meta has secured the land, gas, permits, and is building now with vertically integrated thinking for the long term. It's a work in execution with machinery on the ground, transforming a rural area of Louisiana into a global technological node. However, I don't want to finish without mentioning the technical challenges that, as engineers, should keep us awake at night. Even with all this money and technology, there are hard limits. First, the speed of light. On a campus spanning miles, light takes time to travel through optical fiber. It seems instantaneous, but at these clock frequencies, those nanoseconds count. Latency becomes a physical limit. Software has to be so intelligent that it knows where the data is physically located so as not to waste time waiting for it. Second, grid stability. Injecting and withdrawing 5 gigawatts is brutal. A failure in the main substation could create harmonics and fluctuations that destabilize not only the data center, but Louisiana's regional electrical grid. And finally, obsolescence. An AI GPU has a cutting-edge, useful life of about 3 years. Hyperion will take 5 years to complete fully. There's a real risk that when they inaugurate the last buildings, the first ones already have old hardware. Managing that heterogeneous environment will be an immense logistical challenge. In conclusion, the Hyperion project demonstrates to us that the barrier to entry for artificial general intelligence no longer resides solely in having the best mathematicians or programmers. The barrier now is industrial. It's about the capacity to mobilize energy, water, silicon, and photonics on an unprecedented scale. Meta isn't building a building, they're building a distributed planetary computer. If they manage to operate this facility at full capacity, they'll possess the most powerful training platform in the world, consolidating their technological sovereignty for the next decade. And we, as engineers, must understand every screw, every chip, and every watt of this process, because this is the new standard. And here, I leave you a question to reflect on and leave me your opinion in the comments. Seeing the magnitude of water and energy consumption of projects like Hyperion, do you believe that hardware innovation will be able to make AI more efficient before we exhaust the local resources of these regions? Or are we doomed to build increasingly resource-devouring infrastructures? Read others' comments because surely an interesting debate will emerge. This has been The Next Framework in Engineering, analyzing the present so you can build the future. See you in the next technical analysis.